as I'm saying, and that's where the issue is.
Yeah.
But from now until it gets to Parliament, or even where it is in Parliament, when it is in Parliament, you require the public consultation, people, because why you need to consult the public is not just about for people to know, but it's also for people to say, to follow the process, but also to know what their representatives are doing, whether it is in line with what they also expect or want them to do. Because it is usually very easy for representatives to come to Parliament and say, I consulted my people, this is what they say, this is what they say. And sometimes, if you ask the people their aspiration and what their representative are saying is totally different. And I agree.
No, and that's not even what I'm saying, but go
that's
ahead and
also
finish.
where the role of civil society comes in. How do you facilitate and support these processes where those things have to be there? But
Yeah.
what we get right now is also a draft where people are trying to digest. It's something that people are trying to digest. What is inside? What is not inside? Do you agree with it? Don't you agree with it? I'm happy that Madi is here, because Madi himself has been proposing, one particular approach, which is more like citizen assemblies, which I feel also needs to be, looked at to a certain extent, but how to integrate it widely would be problematic. But there is the bottom line is whether the whole of the 2020 draft we introduced as it was, it will create conversation, just like whether they touch it, it also will create conversation. But at the end of the day, what is important is all what we are saying in terms of the consultation. For me, the consultation should not be just to pick few individuals, normal faces. It should be bottom up. It should start from the communities. In every community, there are village development committees. And this current draft affects, especially with the issue of
say not no, but they said not to cut you there.
well, let me
If
finish.
you
Let me
start to
finish.
go
Let
that,
me finish. No, let me
if you
finish. Because you see, what I don't want us to do is also for us because right now we are complaining that there's a capturing of the whole process by cabinet. If we limit it, also bringing people here, we'll be accused of that same process. But at the community level, every community you have village development committee. There are village development committees. Can they start the conversation at that level? To what extent? How is this particular proposed bill? How is it going
list to change from interacting with you for many, many years, knowing you're a true Democrat and you want to see a Gambia different from our current predicament? I get that one. And I know my sister, what is Mariam C, wrote something with it. I get that. I just said it. I said the reason why ECOMIC didn't even leave the Gambia, they've been extended and extended and extended. There's a reason for it, right? They understand. And again, I think what Musa is giving is say, be careful. You are going through uncharted territory. Be careful, right? I get that, Musa. But I think our position should be moving forward is to convince people that, hey, still now, we got a document that we can work. We the people. Yes, this one, they didn't consult us. They didn't consult the people. They came up with it. We challenge the minister. The minister needs to come out. What can you do as the chief prosecutor of the executive branch? What can you do to correct this? And how do we bring Gambians in order to have a constitution? And I think that's where Fofulai Daniel Father most chief strategist. Man, Lula Bugade. This whole partisanship and all, what it does is it's part of the process. But if we continue to dilate much on stuff that what me, what I want, me, that's what I want. I think basically we're gonna get into this quagmire, and it's gonna be forever and forever. Let's look at things that are best for the country and what we fought for many years, and tell it on. And I'm gonna say this. Musa, I think people who are accusing you, who are saying Musa is tribalist, Musa is this, Musa is this, they don't know you, right? So I think I get that. Your champ brother in I don't know wherever he is, that he wrote in capital letter, he keep talking about my temperament. That guy doesn't know me day or earth, right? So you get these things on both sides. But again, I think who you are and what you stand for. And I think you stand for democracy. You've been there fighting during Jammeh's hard times, right? So someone coming to this platform and say, you're tribal, you're this. That person didn't know you. They don't interact with you. And Gambians, we have one problem. What somebody said about somebody, we frame our mind around that, even though that is bogus. That's what we continue to spread that. And that is our problem. And the problem that we're talking about today for more than 2.5 hours, it all mirrored towards the same crap. And unless and until we get away from this, it's going to continue. If somebody speak that doesn't go in line with you, you go and have a conversation intellectually, challenge the person why he said that. Don't put labels on him. You're a tribal. He's a Gambian. He has the right to speak. And I think that is very, very important. And that's what I'm gonna say. And they have to be fair to you. You never, even that I'm talking about Melta, you sat on this platform many times. You said, no, we cannot speak on Melta. I think somebody came here at one time. You are all up on him. But what I'm trying to say is, today, Father Mose, that you wanted to defend the indefensible, and it didn't happen. And my boss, with everything, I yield the floor. And
okay, let me, no. I defend the indefensible. Let me reiterate what I try to defend that is seen to be indefensible. Banker, I said, the process that was used to bring the 2024 constitution is flawed. I said the process was done without consultation. I said, to be honest, it would have been better if this constitution was brought differently. And then I said, I have what I consider myself deal breakers. For me,
deal maker. Deal maker.
The ones that are fundamental that I cannot compromise, that I draw the red line for me, is that I need a term limit. Our democracy needs that. Our country needs that. And when I mean the term limit, not without this ambivalence that was created. And that is, we have a 5-year term and it starts today. Barrow can run in 2026, Barrow cannot run in 2031. Clear as day. I want a constitution that gives me that you cannot win an election 50+ unless you get the absolute majority. How is that defending the indefensible? How does that make me a tribalist? I don't understand. I said,
okay, your mom. So the guy they use that T word.
changes that were made. There are changes that were made that I have problems with, but they are not deal breakers for me. I have problems with them, but do must sacrifice suma term limit at suma 50+1 because of those things. I wouldn't mind to compromise on those things. And that is, if you want to arrest, you change it from 48 hours to 72 hours. I don't like it. But I'm willing to pay the price to have a 72 hours arrest. If I can get 2-term limit, if I can get 50+1. Young Majali, I said, if you are going to delete consumer protection, all right, I don't like it, but I am willing to sacrifice that to get my term limit and my 50+1. If you delete an entire chapter about leadership and governance, which is aspirational, I don't like it, but I am willing to pay that price so that I can get my 2-term limit and 50+1. So this is not them. How does that make it defending the indefensible? How does that make it me being a hypocrite? How does that make it? People need to be at least rational.
Look, Look, at the end of the day, you have to understand there are set of groups or individuals that have jumped in the fray starting in 2016. How the struggle, how many that about how the change even happened? How many that they don't know anything about it. 2016 like join rec, so they come ñom liñ leen instruct moy dem leen ngeen pour wax rek ngeen saga ko wax leen ngeen briefing. I mean, so these people, they think their job is to call you names and insult you and harass you and try to bully you. So once you understand that, then you don't get bogged down in that kind of stuff. You are a tribalist against the Panapanas. But that's the way I see you. You are a very, very big tribalist guy because they're not buying Panapanas. But all jokes aside, though, the fact of the matter is that you are one of the most decent individuals I have ever worked with, that I call a friend, that I call a brother. And, all these other labels that people try to throw at you, I laugh when I hear them, because I think they're just said to piss you off. And they want to piss you off, they say, more for tribalist. Well, Money, he's a hypocrite. They call me worse names, I think, than you. Maybe there are some words that they use on you, but they use those on me. And I take them as a badge of honor. These days, I can walk around town with a chip on my shoulder when it comes to those words. But look, all jokes aside, though, the fact of the matter is, what you said is very reasonable. It makes perfect sense. In the end, we need to understand, when it comes to a national document, a constitution for that matter, in all instances throughout the course of human history, since the dawn of man, they've always been like this, exactly the way we are having it. And for me, that's why when the conversation began, when I first came in, remember I started with what? The United States constitutional making process. That's what I began with. Because I want to put all of this into perspective. That all the jockeying, the America that everybody wants to visit now and come to and live in America, this is their dream country. Literally, these petty squabbles that you are seeing among us in the Gambia right now, this is exactly what they were doing here. In fact, worse, when it came to their constitution. So, that's why I began with, because I wanted people to understand that this is not a zero-sum game. And so it's not one of those things where you just get frustrated and discouraged and walk away when things don't seem to be going your way, because that's the way to deal with it. No. As outrageous as government's action may seem to some people, or a lot of people, this is exactly how many times constitutions get started. U.S. Constitution, I'm telling you, when they first came up with it, can you imagine the people who were in charge of this constitution were people like James Madison? These are patriots of the highest order. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. I mean, if you talk about America, you cannot talk about, these are the real deal, the founding fathers. The constitution they wrote, when the states saw it, they were like, are you guys out of your freaking mind? Because the constitution was heavy on the federal government. It literally gave the federal government all the powers you can think of in the world. The states, zero. All the power was in the hands of the federal government. When they went to the states were like, no, Jose, we are not going to abide into this. You guys are giving yourself all the powers so the states can become slaves to you? No, we are not going to take it. So through negotiation and coercion and talking to each other and discussing, and they somehow found a framework where they, even this bicameral system they have, the Senate and the House. If you notice the Senate, whether you are a big state or small state, you get 2 senators, right? You notice that?
Yeah.
All of this was a compromise, because the small states were saying, hey, with what you guys are doing, we don't want to be part of it, because you want to give all the powers to yourself. And the democracy that you guys want to implement, in that democracy, we will have no powers at all. We cannot even decide on anything. So they said, okay, let's have 2 houses. One of them will go by the population of each state. The other one will, each state, whether big or small, we give you 2 senators. So when you pass something in this house, you have to go to the Senate. This is where the small states also wield their power. This was all part of a compromise, because the people who first wrote it literally did not have any of these things in mind. And it sounded like crazy to these small states. They think these people want to take advantage of them. In the Gambia too, we are looking at this and people are saying, hey, the government wants to take advantage of us. Look at what they have done. This is crazy. This is not even patriotic. How can they want to give all the powers to the president? No, we are not going to take it. Fine. Let's sit down and negotiate and discuss it and come to an agreement, something that will reflect our aspiration as a people. That's what they did in the United States. That's what we need to do too. Look, the wrangling and the screaming is all fine and dandy with me. It's okay. It's part of the democratic process. If we don't do that, I'll be surprised. But at the end of the day, let's not miss the point here, and let's not lose sight of the reality. And that reality is what you were pushing for. And that is to say, look, I get it. This was not done the right way. I don't agree with their process, with their position on these things. But yes, what we should do. Let's sit down, let's discuss, let's negotiate, and let's come to an agreement, and let's move forward. That's the most reasonable thing I can think of. For anybody to call that a person a hypocrite, that person needs to go and check their head, because they are being idiotic. This is the way we need to pursue this. In Gambia, I think because our people they don't really take the time to go and read history and understand it. We are not doing anything new. We are not reinventing the wheel. We are not inventing the wheel. Let me put it that way. Anything we are doing in the Gambia, every country has done before us. When did our republic began? in 1970. We are literally a very, very young country. So everything we are doing, countries have done well before us. So there is a blueprint somewhere we can look at and follow. Is that as plain and simple? So we don't have to sit here and look like we are coming up with new ideas that the world has never seen, or we can do something different that the world has never done. Look, that's the kind of wrangling I see many of our people engage in. But a lot of these guys that are calling you hypocrite don't know anything about history. They just, they are into this partisan nonsense. Let's call them names. Let's start to bully them. And it's for their own ego. It's not even for the country. These are not patriotic actions. Patriots will sit down and say, okay, there's a problem. We get it. Let's sit down. Let's see how we solve it. At some point, we'll come to an agreement. And at some point, we'll have a constitution that not everybody will necessarily agree with, but we can all live with. And in the end, that's what we need for now. We can perfect the union as we move forward. Because the United States Constitution went through 27 amendments. 27 amendments. Why? Because they went back and said, this one is not relevant anymore. Now, this one, they put it in there, we shouldn't have done. This one. I mean, if you look at even the Bill of Rights, like I said before, the Bill of Rights is about individual rights. Because everything was about federal government's powers and this and the other. People started saying, so what about the individual? What about our rights? So they came up with the Bill of Rights. That Bill of Rights was not there in the original draft. So again, what I'm saying is, government came with a bill, with a draft. Let's go back and scrutinize the draft. Let's find a way to come to an agreement on it, and then move forward. That's all we need to do. There is no need for name calling this one a hypocrite, calling this one this, a tribalist, calling this one that. That's not the way. It's not mature. It is childish. It's unpatriotic. It is evil. It is idiotic. It makes no sense. It doesn't help our country. It just helps your ego to go back and say, hey, I went to that program the other day. If you should see what I wrote about Musa. I called him. I insulted him. This Musa, I'll do him. This is how we act. It's very, very childish. We should be doing this. You are a patriot, Musa. You are spending how many hours a day? To sit here. Sorry.
When you can't even see the plus. It's not about me. I think sometimes we reduce.
No, but it's idiotic.
We discuss issues. Somebody said it's only those two things that I'm interested in. They have to understand that the 2020 draft is almost 200 chapters. So the fundamental rights haven't been touched. There are a lot of things that we're not touched. So those are the only two things. Those are not the only two things that I cherish. No, for instance, I want to answer Safi, this lady, Safi Toure, and it's like, important. No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, for me, those two things are very, very important. They are very important. Now, the local government deleting decentralization, I have a serious issues with that. That could be a deal breaker too. I don't like the way they change the Independent Electoral Commission, because appearance of independence and fairness in elections is very important. If people believe that the president can just select whoever he wants and without going to consultation from the National Assembly, but does some kind of commission, I think that is going to send an appearance that President Biafra handpick anybody, IEC chairman. That's when we're going to get into this problem that the elections were stolen. So there are things that are very important. But I don't think we can have a serious constitution without term limit. I don't think we can have a serious constitution, for me now, without this absolute majority. Those are not the only things, but I think they're fundamental. Sorry, yeah.
Well, no, that's fine, but you gotta understand the right that you have to speak on those matters. That's what some people are passionate that the ones that they remove. How do we reinstate those? And I think for me, as I said, and I think that's where we have to push back here. I'm not saying 51 majority is not important, but I'm not gonna. For me, I think holding the office and the members accountable and be transparent, and like the ones that you said, like IEC, non-interference, have them work independently. Those are dear to me. And I think if we want strong institution, we need to have separation of powers. And I think that is important. So whether you think we should go because we have a 51 plus majority, 50 plus, or two-term limit? I don't think so. So how about if that person, the next person who comes in, who wins? I mean, we have these loopholes that we can hold them accountable. Now, what does that person do? I mean, we would wait for 2 terms for them to enrich themselves, no issues. And I think there's going to be issues. And I think what I'm trying to say is, let's correct it. Let's compromise things that they remove. Go back to them and say, hey, you have
can you tell me what are the, I mean, we all kind of have an idea the things that were removed that we really want back. When you say compromise, let's get to the middle of it. What would you compromise?
What would I compromise?
Yeah, what would you compromise? See,
I said a retroactive clause is not a deal breaker for me at all. I really care less about that stuff, right? Because I think if we have all these, especially the ones that they remove, if we have that in there, right, and trying to clarify the 10-year 2-term too, I think they need to amplify on that. I really don't, and it's not up to me here. The people who are out there, that this conversation needs to go back to them.
No, I'm not you. No, I'm not. No matter yo, when you said the retroactivity, you're saying that it doesn't matter if Barrow runs in 2026 and 2031.
I'm saying, like, you are entitled. I said that's not.
No, I'm not. I
know. Okay, hold on. Okay, but you got it. You asked me. Let me answer because I want clarity.
affect their own communities? For me, these are the kind of questions that people need to be asking. And for us, these are the things that we need to start pushing to the community if we
Yeah.
are going with the option of
No. Well,
looking into
but say that has already been done before.
no, that was done with
You
the
can,
2020 draft
no,
banker.
yeah,
This is
let
a
me
new
finish. Yeah,
this
let me
one is a
land.
new one.
Yeah, I
Where,
understand that. What I'm no, well, no, it's not a new one per se. They took stuff out and made changes that most people don't appreciate, and I understand that part. But what I'm
yeah,
trying to
because
say is
but most of these
the
changes were also opposed. So
yes, I agree.
most of the things that were in the draft are things that the Constitutional Review Commission said it should be there because
No,
the
I
people
agree.
said they wanted to have it there.
I
And
agree
so
with you.
for them, they don't want that, they remove
No,
that. So for
I
me,
agree with
the
you. What
question
I,
is, since they don't, yeah, they need to go back to the people
no,
to say that we
I agree
remove
with
this,
you.
and
What
they
I'm
tell
saying
this is
is
why we remove it.
no. Say it. I agree with you. But what I'm trying to say is this: that where we are at this point right now is that we have a constitutional review commission that came with a proposed draft. You already said that, and we
Yes.
all agree with that, and we are all on the same page on that. The government went back and took that the same proposed draft and made changes to it, adding stuff and deleting stuff and all that kind of stuff that many people don't appreciate, and rightfully so. What I am saying is that when you bring representatives from around the country, around this in the same room, around the table, and say, okay, here's it. Like I was just telling Musa, here is the 2024 proposed draft. Well, those people are going to come with the 2020 proposed draft. Even civil society, I'm sure, will come with it, the 2021, and say, why did you take this out? Why did it? And then the conversation really is going to take place around the 2024 draft. In that regard, when that happens, whatever comes out of consultation,
No, no,
we will
but I
also
get your
will
point. But what
reflect.
I'm trying to tell you,
Money, let's get brother
My,
Madi. Madi
yeah,
just
is Madi
let
here
me
too? Okay,
clarify
okay.
your point.
yeah,
Madi
Me,
go.
I'm speaking from,
Madi just
you know,
joined.
I'm speaking from a civil society. You know,
Right.
can I conclude this part? You know,
Okay.
I'm not disagreeing with what you were saying, but I'm saying that you know, for if it was a bill like a normal bill, I would say, you know, let's bring in people and say let's consult them for those kind of stuff. But we are talking about a constitution. You know, for me, like that's why I'm trying to separate the conversation because a constitution, you know, for me, I see it is at the, you know, it's a different level because eventually, who are these people that because eventually you have to say what you are proposing, you'll get delegates and all those different stuff. To what extent these delegates will represent the people that will send them and all those different stuff will be another issue. But I'm gonna keep quiet so that Madi can discuss this issue because
So
this is his
brother
area.
Madi,
Barman.
we are at the cul-de-sac. 4 years ago we went through this and we know what happened. We're back to square one. Where do we go from here? We need help. We need a messiah or something, brother Madi.
Thank you. Great to be here. Nice to see you, Banker.
Nice to see you too. It's been a while.
Yes, state and our hope. So if we can get solution from state, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, once again, Saria, and yeah, Musa, it's great to be here on this very important topic. Um, I'm having mixed feelings, trying to figure out, in fact, where to start. Because the task we have is very easy, provided certain things are, we recognize certain things, but also it's very difficult because if you want to make it difficult, as this government has made it very difficult for us, we have to remember that in the first place, candidate Barrow in 2026 in his manifesto has highlighted a new constitution as one of the objectives when they came to power. And indeed, they did set up a CRC Act in 2017.
2016.
2016, yeah. But I mean, when they took office, they created what is called the CRC Act,
Yes.
Constitutional Review Commission Act, and the 1997 Constitution is very clear. I mean, in the TRRC, the testimonies from lawyers like Gay So have highlighted, and then a charm the inadequacies, of that constitution. So there's no doubt that we need a new constitution. The 2020 draft, I think it was a wonderful draft. Um, the fears and the concerns expressed at the time, particularly by individuals, religious groups, Muslim and Christian, I think are baseless. It's either out of ignorance or people are just generating imaginary fears on themselves, so that that aside, we saw how this president woefully failed to defend something that he initiated himself, and so we got to this point, and after having spent that much money and so much time, you now bring us this draft 2024, which in some instances is even worse than the 1997 constitution, in the way they have diluted um, you know um, checks and balances. They have diluted human rights standards. They have diluted, governance standards generally, and heaped so much power in the hands of the executive, the president in particular, which is a real cause for concern for me. And above all, which I will deal with tomorrow in an article I'm writing on the issue of term limit. Um, you know, People need to go back to read that provision, which uh, the way it is crafted is already crafted to create a turmoil in future.
Yeah.
That provision is a crisis in waiting, because the same kind of structure that we saw what depend on, that we saw Makisal depend on, that we
Mhm.
saw Ouattara depend on, plunging their countries into turmoil,
Correct.
wasting so many lives. And this government, again, this cabinet, um, refusing to deal with the issue of term limits, particularly when that term limit begins, crafted a provision that only tells us who is the first president of the first republic or the third republic, which is not a brainer at all. If you have a new constitution, certainly the president sitting at the time will be considered the first president of the third
Correct.
republic.
Correct.
So that is not an issue. So that at the end of the day, I follow the conversation. There are two things. Um, Barrow, if he's aware, um, of the responsibility in his hands, if he's aware and care about legacy, if he's aware of the future stability, the development, the transformation of the government into a modern, democratic, civilized state, here it is for him to take advantage after having betrayed that obligation since 2020. All right, so that for the cabinet to sit down and craft this what they consider to be a constitution, um, is most unfortunate. And so the issue is, uh, what do they want? What kind of government do they want as a body? Um, that is basically it. And I think we as intellectuals, journalists, activists, and everyone else need to call this spade a spade. That we have a cabinet that practically wants to derail the country, that practically wants to keep the country in backwardness, that practically wants to keep the country or transform the country into a dictatorship by looking at the provisions that are in the 2024 draft. Now, going forward, since 2018 or 17, when this CRC Act was done, I had said the CRC Act is a disaster in itself. All right, because in the Act, when you go back to the CRC Act, you will not see in clear terms how are we going to get a new constitution. The most important part, they put it in what they call miscellaneous provisions, that the CRC would submit to the president, and the president would submit it to the National Assembly untouched, and then full stop. What is National Assembly going to do with it? How? That isn't spelled out. Now, the idea of submitting a constitution to the National Assembly, I had said it at the time that that is wrong. The executive and the legislature are not the bodies to write a constitution for the people of a country. It is the people of the country who should write their constitution, because the constitution is their opinion about how they should run themselves. So that what the executive should do and the legislature is to facilitate that process by ensuring that The power, the ability, the freedom is with the people to, generate their own opinions, to put it in a document as a draft and send it back to the people to go to a referendum. All right. Now they failed to do that, and then they, depended on the 1997 constitution to want to create a new constitution, which in itself is unconstitutional, because the 1997 constitution, like any national constitution, has no provision to repeal itself. Under section 226 of the 1997 constitution, all the provisions I are talking about is about how do you amend the 1997 constitution, either by repealing certain provisions or changing provisions and so on. But there's no provision that talks about repealing